Yu Xiaoyao was born foolish, and even after her parents went missing, she was recognized by the so-called master as a celestial evil lone star. After being swept out by the Yu family, he was spoiled by his aunt and uncles. Everyone is watching a good show, waiting for their family to be defeated by the heavenly demon Lone Star and suffer misfortune. I didn't expect their family's financial luck to improve and their luck to explode. And the so-called little fool is not foolish at all. He transformed into a master of metaphysics. Sketches, alchemy, ghost hunting. Countless tycoons chased after Yu Xiaoyao and said, "Master, please sell me a talisman." Missing parents who had reached the level of cultivation rushed back in a hurry. Niu Niu is still so young, shouldn't she be bullied? As a result, her own daughter unexpectedly became a celestial being surrounded by the power of faith. Yang Ku. You're amazing, my child. Chapter 1. Tiansha Lone Star Little Fool. You are listening at novel full.audio. 1. 2. 3. In the early morning light, a girl with a small knot sat on the windowsill, trying hard to look at the number card in her hand. This is a child around 4 years old, extremely beautiful, with delicate eyebrows and eyes, and fair skin. Wearing an old white dress, but unable to conceal her cuteness. She looks a bit slow in her movements and her voice is also unclear, looking much slower than her peers. The girl still had an orange cat lying at her feet, squinting and dozing off. Suddenly, Orange Cat's ears, steamed cat.ear-shaped bread, ear shook slightly, got up and looked in the direction of the door. The next second, she got up and jumped out of the window. Just as it disappeared, a rapid sound of footsteps suddenly came from outside. Yu Xiaoyao also heard, her beautiful eyes instantly filled with hope. Ma. It must be Baba Mao Mao's return. She had just turned her head when waves of footsteps had already arrived at the door. Master, this is it. With a loud bang, the door was knocked open. Yu Xiaoyao was immediately startled by this situation, and her small body froze in place. Amidst the hustle and bustle, an elderly man in a Taoist robe was surrounded by the crowd. Upon hearing the commotion, Aunt Lu, the nanny, hurriedly walked out of the kitchen. Why are so many people here? What is this? Before she could ask, the old man held a compass in his hand and turned around Yu Xiaoyao, who was frightened. His face suddenly changed. The person following behind understood and quickly asked, Master, what's wrong? This child has extremely heavy energy on his body. Master, then my older brother is missing. It's true that we can't get rid of her. It's not good, it's not good. The master's face became worse and worse, and he said 3 times in a row, Heavenly Sha Lone Star. If this child continues to stay here, I'm afraid you will also be implicated. It's easy for a family to break down or die. What? Family is ruined and people are ruined. Now, the other people who didn't make much noise couldn't help themselves. We took good care of this fool, but we didn't expect her to harm us. Stupid and foolish, the result is still this fate, it's simply a harmful monster. Dad, let's quickly send this fool away. Yu Xiaoyao has never seen so many people before, and she doesn't quite understand what they mean by Heavenly Sha Lone Star, but she can understand the word farewell. No, Niu Niu cannot leave. Although everyone says she's a little fool, she's not stupid, she understands. Understanding is understanding, but she cannot express herself well, as if her soul is locked in a small room, unable to speak or act smoothly. Everything is slower than peers. This strange grandfather lied, Mama said, they will definitely come back. Yu Xiaoyao tried her best to reach out to her grandfather, and her fleshy little hand gently grabbed the hem of his pants. She doesn't want to leave, she wants to stay here and wait for Baba Mama to come back. Mr. Yu lowered his head and looked at the little girl nervously gripping his pants. Before she could speak out, a hint of gloom appeared in his eyes. They have been intelligent for generations, how could such a fool come out of them? Since this fool was born, nothing has happened. His eldest son went missing 6 months ago, and despite using various forces, he was unable to find any trace. Thinking of his eldest son, whose life and death were unknown, he became increasingly displeased with this little fool and quickly pulled his foot back. How could a small child withstand this sudden force? Its center of gravity was unstable immediately, and its small body fell heavily to the ground with a loud snap. The fair skin on her cheeks immediately showed red marks. Yu Xiaoyao only felt a lot of pain in her hands and face. It hurts so much that she feels like crying. But Aunt Lu once said, Niu Niu cannot cry, and everyone doesn't like crying ghosts. Niu Niu is not a crybaby, she is a brave and obedient child. The little girl struggled to hold on, feeling her eyes swollen and uncomfortable. Aunt Lu quickly picked her up with heartache. Niu Niu is good, Niu Niu doesn't hurt. Being coaxed by her, Yu Xiaoyao inexplicably felt particularly uncomfortable and wanted to cry even more. Helplessness, fear. Various emotions enveloped her small body, but she still held back from crying. Dad, what should we do? Should we send her away tonight? Yu Xiaoyao pouted and looked up at her grandfather. After working hard for a while, what she wanted to say reached her lips, but she only uttered a vague tone of yi. Mr. Yu looked at this timid little girl. The child was small and looked more like her mother, but he could still see that it resembled his eldest son to some extent. Master, if we don't send her away, is there any way to change her destiny? Upon hearing this, everyone stopped and said, Dad, this is not a small matter. You must never leave this bereaved star here again. As soon as he finished speaking, he caught a glimpse of Mr. Yu's blackened face and quickly retreated to the side, but no one dared to speak again. The master next to him pinched his fingers and said mysteriously, There's a way, there's a half chance of success. He looked at the little girl on the ground and said, Find a room facing south, put this child inside, and I will paste talismans outside to make it. Let her dig a valley inside for 3 days, and there is a chance to remove her yin qi. Maybe her destiny will change. Aunt Lu's face instantly turned pale. What is the 3 days of Pugu? Isn't that the 3 days of hungry girl? Master, Niu Niu is only 4 years old, how can she break through the valley? Her voice was quickly drowned out by someone. Shut up. You servant has no right to speak. You didn't hear what the master said. This fool is a celestial demon and a lone star. If he doesn't change his destiny, is he trying to kill us? I made the change, maybe Big Brother can come back. Upon hearing about his eldest son, Grandpa Yu's heart sank and he said, Then follow the master's instructions. So, Yu Xiaoyao was quickly forcibly taken away and taken to a small room. This room is empty, with nothing but a small bed and a pot of water. The windows are covered with thick curtains, and there is hardly any light. Everyone left her behind and hurriedly left. Seeing everyone about to leave, Yu Xiaoyao panicked and got up from the ground. Niu Niu, Niu Niu, Niu Niu will be very obedient. Don't lock Niu Niu here, Niu Niu is afraid, but her small legs couldn't catch up, and the door was still closed in front of her, while the only light disappeared. Yu Xiaoyao finally walked up to the door and knocked on it, hoping to have people outside open the door. The door was thick and heavy, and she could hardly make a sound when she tapped it with her small fist. She stayed behind the door for a while, looking at the pitch-black room, feeling really scared. Finally, he slowly moved onto the small bed, curled up his small body, and sobbed softly. Baba. Mama. Come back quickly, Niu Niu is afraid. Just as she was about to fall asleep, cold and hungry, she suddenly heard a buzzing sound in her ear. It's like the sound of wind chimes being blown by the wind. Then, a cold word came, very close to her. Finally found. Yu Xiaoyao slowly opened her eyes and noticed a faint light appearing in front of her. A small ball, very beautiful, like the light of a firefly. What is this thing? She had never seen anything before, but she couldn't help but want to touch it. As the light approached, a warm atmosphere enveloped her. She felt particularly comfortable and instinctively reached out her little hand to grab it. Chapter 2. One Soul, One Soul. You are listening at novel full.audio. Touching the light, some strange fragments suddenly came to Yu Xiaoyao's mind. Although it was something that had never happened before, it seemed to have existed in her memory for a long time. What are these? A big question mark couldn't help but emerge from Yu Xiaoyao's small head. In confusion, she heard the faint voice again. Hello. Yes, who is speaking? Her small body trembled, and the little girl panicked and twisted her head, looking left and right. Mao Mao used to tell her stories, saying that after dark, there would be big monsters appearing and obedient babies should not run around. Is it a big monster? It sounds more like a little brother. It's me, I'm not a monster, you can understand it as. The other person's voice paused for a moment. Recalling what the person had said to him, he decisively used a more understandable word from this perspective, system. I hope this identity can successfully evade the laws of this plane. The little girl doesn't understand what system means, she just thinks it's magical. She didn't even make a sound, why can he understand her meaning? She thought carefully in her heart, you're not a big monster. Can you eat a little baby? Upon hearing this question, the other party seemed speechless for a moment before saying, I won't eat. Carrying her heart to hear the answer, Yu Xiaoyao patted her chest and breathed a sigh of relief. Since he doesn't eat the baby, Niu Niu is not afraid. As she thought, she secretly tightened the small blanket and pursed her mouth tightly. Seeing the little girl silent again, the system remained silent for a moment before continuing, my name is Yinchuan. Your mother asked me to come find you, and I brought back your soul and soul. Before being born, the little girl lost her soul and soul, which is why she is more sluggish than her peers and her language is also hindered. The fragments she had seen earlier were the memories of her lost soul and soul, but they had not yet fully fused, so they were scattered and couldn't be seen clearly. Ma. The little girl's eyes lit up instantly, even forgetting to be afraid. Where am I, Ma? Yin Chuan said, don't worry, you can calm down and merge your soul and soul first, and your mother will come back then. What is one soul and one soul? Yinchuan didn't know how to explain, so he gave a suggestion. Why don't you meditate first? Absorbing spiritual energy can accelerate soul fusion. The spiritual energy of this plane is pitifully thin, better than nothing, it can always play a role. Okay, Yu Xiaoyao nodded. Quickly, she felt like there was something more in her mind, very familiar, as if it was hidden in those fragments of memory. Meditation practice, absorbing spiritual energy. She tried to control her body, wanting to cross her calves and legs, close her eyes, and mutter vaguely in her mouth, Pan. Sit with peace of mind. Although she closed her eyes, she could see small light spots of light blue around her. She tried to pull them all to her side. Don't worry, the first meditation may not go smoothly. Before Yinchuan finished speaking, she noticed the thin spiritual energy around her and began to slowly approach her. Yinchuan. Surprisingly succeeded in an instant. Master Yun is outside, holding a talisman and reciting words, just about to stick it to the door. Suddenly, he felt the compass on the table move and his face changed. Quick. Open the door and take a look. Yu Manqing beside him hurriedly said, Master, it hasn't been half a day yet. Just drive it if you want. Simply pushing the door open, Master Yun looked at the little girl inside and pinched his fingers, showing a hint of suspicion on his face. This child's destiny has changed. He didn't know why the little girl's destiny had undergone such a big change in a short period of time. It's so strange that he can't see clearly. Master, do you mean that the fate of the heavenly Sha lonely star has changed? Master Yun retorted, no, the current destiny is even more terrifying than the heavenly Sha lonely star. What? Everyone was startled. The heavenly Sha lone star is already scary enough. What is even more terrifying than this? Yu Xiaoyao happened to meditate for a little Sunday, and when she opened her eyes, she realized that so many people were standing in front of her. Especially behind the strange grandfather before, there were actually several older brothers and sisters floating around. Just like the kites my parents flew before, it seemed like there was a string attached to him. As he walked, the older brothers and sisters followed suit, and their expressions looked very grim. Curious, she didn't see these older brothers and sisters before. Watching the ferocious people around her, Yu Xiaoyao carefully hid behind the door and remained silent. Yinchuan didn't want to let this scammer go so easily. He finally found someone, but it was in such a dark place. Niu Niu, just say whatever you see. Yu Xiaoyao nodded, grabbed the door panel, looked at Master Yun, and whispered, Grandpa, are you not tired carrying so many brothers and sisters? This strange sentence immediately froze the people present and they looked behind Master Chao Yun in unison. There's no such person. This statement is too bizarre, so everyone did not realize that Yu Xiaoyao's speech has become much smoother. You little fool, you're talking nonsense about disrespecting the master again. I'm not talking nonsense. Yu Xiaoyao carefully pointed to the left and spoke softly, here. There's a big sister in red clothes, tears streaming red. She also pointed to the right, the brother here. Is curious, only has one hand. Naive and innocent words make everyone feel creepy. Master Yun even felt a chill in his spine. Can this girl see it? After only thinking for a moment, he glared angrily and said, it would be best if this child could bring me back to the temple and change his destiny. Go on, listen to the master. They wished to see off this little evil star immediately, and naturally they were very happy to hear this. If you can change your destiny, it's best. If you can't change it, you can stay in the temple and become a little Taoist. I see who dares to take my little girl away. Just then, a woman in a suit and leather shoes walked in, wearing high heels. The Yu family recognized at a glance that this was Yang Xinji, the eldest daughter of the Yang family, and also Niu Niu's aunt, the most powerful lawyer in Haisha. How could she appear here? Seeing her successfully arrive, Aunt Lu, who was hiding at the door, breathed a sigh of relief. Earlier, when she saw Niu Niu being locked in the room, she immediately contacted the lady's elder sister. Fortunately, she arrived. As soon as Yang Xian entered, she saw Yu Xiaoyao, who was alone and without anyone to take care of her. Her face instantly changed. Last time I saw this child, the little girl's face turned red and she looked particularly cute. At this moment, her small face visibly lost a large circle. Yang Xinji frowned and hugged her with heartache, looking angrily at the Yu family on the side. Is that how your Yu family takes care of people? Originally, they were all in-laws and influential figures in the market, so I didn't want to make things too ugly. You are so sorry to have to send away such a young child. If you don't want to keep it, then I'll take it with me. Yu Xiaoyao recognizes this beautiful aunt. When Mao Mao was still here before, she came to see her. She remembers that this aunt was very kind to her. Feeling Yu Xiaoyao rubbing against her, Yang Xinji felt even more heartbroken and mocked, such a big family, can't even afford a new outfit. It's really ridiculous. Someone whispered in the back, she's just a fool. If she has a bite, she'll eat well. What does that mean? Yang Xinji's ears were sharp as she walked up to the person. The imposing momentum immediately shook the opponent. The person refused to be outdone and said with a stiff face, I'm not wrong. She's already a fool, and she's still a celestial ghost and a lone star. If Big Brother goes missing, just wait for bad luck if you come into contact with her. Unexpectedly, Yang Xinji sneered and said, are you sorry to blame a child for this? Do you also believe this kind of genius and scammer? I think the Yu family is really not good at it. Young Shinji can be said to be sharp in every sentence, without giving them any face. She was about to speak again when she felt Niu Niu reach out and tug at her clothes. Her expression immediately softened and she said, "Niu Niu, what's wrong?" Yu Xiaoyao raised her hand and pointed to Master Yun, with a serious expression on her small face. "Auntie. It won't be unlucky. It's this strange grandpa who will be unlucky." The big sister in red behind him is almost reaching out and pinching his neck. Chapter 3. Regret. Jokes. You are listening at novel full.audio. Everyone was puzzled. This little fool, why does it feel so different? Can she say such long words before? Speaking of which, although he is still that little fool, he looks very different from before. Originally, this child was quite good looking, but he just looked a bit silly. Now her eyes are lively and beautiful, and being looked at like this makes people inexplicably want to believe her nonsense. The person with the greatest reaction was Master Yun, who had been staring at him so directly twice, and his unease grew stronger in his heart. "I can't change her destiny, why don't you hire someone else?" After speaking, he immediately brushed away without looking back. Walking faster and faster, with a hint of running away. Yu Xiaoyao huddled in young Shinji's arms, blinking as she watched the older brothers and sisters leave. Just now she consulted with brother Yinchuan. Those older brothers and sisters are the cause and effect of this strange grandfather's entanglement, that is, if they do something bad, they will be unlucky. Young Shinji didn't want to stay here and turned to say, "Niu Niu, we'll take it with us. Don't regret it." After speaking, hold on to Niu Niu and quickly leave. The Yu family did not stop at all. Regret. Jokes. The young family is willing to take away this little malevolent star, and of course they can't help but never bring it back. They fools, just wait for bad luck in the future. On the way, young Shinji freed up one hand and gently scraped Yu Xiaoyao's face, saying, "Niu Niu, would you like to go to my grandfather's house?" Yu Xiaoyao nodded and said in a low voice, "Yes." At her grandfather's house, Mao Mao can also find her. She lay on young Shinji's shoulder, looking at the house where she had lived for 4 years. Watching the house covered in faint mist. When my mother was around before, these mists didn't dare to approach. She had seen my mother lift her hand and scatter them with her own eyes. My mother is not here now, more and more. Looking at it, she felt drowsy again. It still takes a lot of energy to merge her soul, and she's still halfway through. "Niu Niu, take a nap first, then wake up and continue to work hard." Muttering to herself, she closed her eyes and soon fell into a deep sleep. The Yang family's old mansion. Mr. Yang, who had received news of his eldest daughter, anxiously walked back and forth at the door. Besides him, the Yang brothers are also present. Yang Yuanjing smiled and said, "Dad, you're so anxious. Why don't you go pick up big sister? Actually, we can't just talk about our father. They are also a bit anxious. My younger sister has been the most favored child in the family since childhood. She was pampered by her older brothers and sisters and grew up. Unfortunately, a few years ago, despite their opposition, she insisted on eloping with that kid from the Yu family. In a fit of anger, the father asked them not to contact the younger sister. However, after the little girl fell into the water and gave birth prematurely, they began to secretly contact each other again. The young couple went missing this time. They had long wanted to go see Niu Niu, but the Yu family refused. I didn't expect big sister to successfully bring Niu Niu back. Humph. Mr. Yang glanced at his second son who always talks recklessly and was about to scold when he saw his daughter's car driving towards him. As soon as the car stopped, everyone quickly gathered around. "Why did you come back so late, Niu Niu?" Niu Niu said she was hungry, so she took her to eat something midway and now she's asleep. Young Shinji carefully picked up the child. The little girl lay quietly in her arms, her face white and tender, and her adorable appearance was just like that of her younger sister when she was a child. Mr. Yang leaned over and said, "I've lost weight. Isn't she thin?" The Yu family didn't even care about the little girl. She just ate a big bowl of rice and was starving. Upon hearing this, Mr. Yang couldn't bear it and wished he could rush to the Yu family to question now. Yang Yuanfan saw his thoughts and said, "Dad, it's too late today. Take Niu Niu in to rest first, and we'll move her household registration over tomorrow." When the little girl eloped, they didn't agree, and her household registration didn't move out. Let Niu Niu's household registration be with her mother. In this way, the Yu family doesn't have a chance to go back on their word. Yang Yuanjing nodded in agreement. Since he had brought the child back, even if she was a little fool, they would spoil her into a little princess. Although Yu Xiaoyao has never stayed at the Yang family's old house, Mr. Yang has already prepared a room for her. He doesn't know what Niu Niu likes, but he thinks little girls will definitely like pink things, so this is a pink and tender room. The things in the room were carefully selected at first glance, and the curtains were patterned with starry sky, looking very dreamy. It is filled with cute plush dolls, and one of them, a huge pink rabbit, is particularly cute and playful. The big bed in the middle looks very warm and comfortable. The old man turned to look at Yu Xiaoyao and said, "Niu Niu, this time I was in a hurry and my grandfather wasn't fully prepared. You just need to make do with it first. If you have anything you like in the future, just tell my grandfather directly." The little girl slept soundly, and the old man asked everyone to go back first to avoid disturbing her. The old man looked at the sleeping girl and then came to the window. There is a photo frame on the table next to it, because there is no photo of Niu Niu, it is from her mother Yang's childhood. He picked up the photo and his gaze fell on it, his expression dim and unclear. At this moment, Yu Xiaoyao woke up and blinked her eyes, curiously surveying the unfamiliar room. Wow! It's so big and beautiful. So many beautiful dolls, I really like them. She turned her head and saw a handsome man standing not far away. He stood straight, but his figure looked inexplicably sad. "Brother Yinchuan, who is he?" Yu Xiaoyao whispered in her heart. Actually, she doesn't know if the little brother knows each other, but the only one she can talk to now is him. Yinchuan really knows each other. When the little girl fell asleep, he kept observing the outside, so he sorted out the relationships between the characters and said, "This is your mother's father, your grandfather." "Grandpa. He looks very sad." After a moment of silence, Yinchuan mercilessly gave the answer. "It should be his daughter who went missing, and his granddaughter is still a little fool, that's why he's sad." "I'm not a little fool," Yu Xiaoyao retorted angrily. She was already tired of speaking now. So she pinched the blanket and tried to shout. "It's outside." Yu Xiaoyao had just woken up, and her voice was not loud and her calls were a bit rusty. "I thought my grandfather didn't hear me," but just when Yu Xiaoyao felt regretful, she saw my grandfather suddenly turn around and look at her in surprise. "Niu Niu, are you calling grandpa?" Yu Xiaoyao nodded. Upon seeing this, the man who remained calm despite the landslide couldn't help but smile. His eyes turned slightly red and he hugged Yu Xiaoyao tightly, saying, "Yes, Niu Niu. Grandpa is here, Niu Niu is not afraid. Grandpa has been here all along." Yu Xiaoyao, who was embraced by warmth, was very puzzled. "Brother Yinchuan, why does Grandpa look even sadder?" Yinchuan did not answer her. Yu Xiaoyao's little brain bag melon couldn't figure it out, she only knew that her grandfather's embrace was warm and comfortable. Previously, at my grandfather's house, besides Baba Mao Mao Ma, there was also Aunt Lu. Everyone seemed to dislike her and even blamed her, saying that she and her mother had caused harm to her father. Her grandfather is still better to her, and she doesn't want such a good grandfather to feel sad. She decided to call her grandfather more in the future to make him happy. Yu Xiaoyao was about to shout again when a commotion came from the door. Then several people rushed in, including the Yang siblings who had been driven away by Mr. Yang earlier. These guys haven't left at all, they've been listening to the commotion in the hallway. Chapter 4. Stained with Ash Gas. You are listening at novel full.audio. Xiaoyao, you're awake. Young Xinji was the first to squeeze in front of Yu Xiaoyao. Xiaoyao, come and call Auntie. Yu Xiaoyao whispered, Auntie. Young Xinji was immediately mesmerized by her and reached out to pinch her small cheek. Who said their girl is a little fool? Isn't that very clever? Yang Yuanfan also hurriedly said, Niu Niu, I am the eldest uncle. You can also call me Little Silly Girl, also known as second uncle. Yang Yuanjing smiled. Yang Yuanya looked enviously at the elder sister. He also wanted to pinch Niu Niu's little face, but he was afraid of scaring Niu Niu, so he could only suppress his itching. Niu Niu, I'm my uncle. In a few days, my uncle will take you to the amusement park to play. The usually intimidating big shots now all show a pleasing and hopeful look. Yu Xiaoyao had never faced a passionate scene before. Her face turned red and she buried her head under the blanket, hiding it. It's like she can't see it herself, and others can't see him either. Everyone was immediately amused by her behavior, and this little girl was too cute. Cough cough, you guys are almost there. Don't scare my girl, Mr. Yang said in time. It's late today, let girl rest first. Are you all too idle? Go back soon. The Yang siblings were kicked out again, and although they had to leave this time, they still reluctantly discussed outside. Tomorrow, I will take Niu Niu out to buy more sets of clothes. Our little princess must look beautiful. Big brother, it seems that you are quite busy with work. Aren't you still having a few plots of land to acquire recently? Let me go, I can make time for it. I think you're the one who's busy. Can you really find time to close the door and not see anyone for 3 days or 2? Their conversation gradually faded away. Here, under the gaze of her grandfather, Yu Xiaoyao lay down obediently. My grandfather said that children should sleep well at night. If they don't sleep, they will not grow taller. Niu Niu, don't be short. But after sleeping for a while, she really couldn't sleep anymore and could only pretend to sleep with her eyes closed. Mr. Yang, be careful that she tucked him in and cornered him. Before, he actually secretly went to see Niu Niu, and now the little girl's speech is noticeably more fluent. It should be their daughter's credit. They were searching for relevant experts to improve Niu Niu's situation before she went missing. As soon as he thought of his youngest daughter, Mr. Yang became depressed again and said, Coco, where the hell are you? Yu Xiaoyao waited for a while before her grandfather left. When she heard the door closed, she immediately opened her eyes. I really can't sleep, let's practice instead. But as soon as she thought about whether he would grow taller, she still hesitated and asked, Brother Yinchuan, can you also grow taller through cultivation? It's possible. The children of the cultivation level are also practicing like this, racing against time. After growing up, everyone is handsome and beautiful, and there is no one who is short. Even if you are really short, you can reshape your body when your cultivation becomes higher in the future, and you don't have to worry about this kind of thing at all. After receiving a satisfactory response, Yu Xiaoyao prepared her calves and legs. Closing her eyes, she couldn't help but ask, so can I see numbness when I merge my soul? After a moment of silence, Yinchuan said, your mother is far away. When she merges her soul, she will need your help to come back. Yu Xiaoyao hurriedly said, I need to help, how can I help? She needs the power of faith to cultivate, and you can help collect the power of faith. Yu Xiaoyao nodded her head like pounding garlic and said, okay, but how do we collect it? Yinchuan said, just like the causes and effects you saw before, some people are unintentionally influenced by causes and effects. You can help them solve it and gain the power of faith. Oh. In fact, She also really wants to help those older brothers and sisters floating behind the strange grandpa, they seem to be in a lot of pain. As soon as she nodded, she saw a light gathering in front of her, and then a transparent bottle appeared. Every time you collect a little bit of faith power, a stone will condense in the bottle. When the bottle is full, the power of faith will be enough. Yu Xiaoyao looked up at the big bottle and extended her little arm to measure it. So big, she can't even use both hands to hold it. Well, Niu Niu knows, Niu Niu will work hard. Yu Xiaoyao gave herself encouragement in her heart, and she will definitely work hard to collect the power of faith and strive to find her mother as soon as possible. She turned her head and saw a long, progress bar-like thing next to the bottle. After asking, she found out that this was the progress of her soul fusion. Now it's 3/4 full, almost lost. Yu Xiaoyao is very happy. Brother Yinchuan said that when her soul is fully integrated, her cultivation efficiency will be higher, and she doesn't need to meditate all day. Brother Yinchuan, is the gray aura on uncle's body also causal? At that moment, my uncle came in and she saw that he was wrapped around with some dusty air. Very light, not even noticeable without careful examination. It's just different from the one on Grandpa Strange, and it doesn't emit that much malice. If it's cause and effect, she will work hard tonight to cultivate and accumulate spiritual energy, and tomorrow she will help her uncle solve it. Yinchuan naturally noticed it too, but he didn't expect that Yu Xiaoyao would just be able to sense such a fainting energy when she had just introduced qi into her body. It seems that her talent is also good, perhaps similar to him in the beginning. He explained, no, where did he get his yin energy from? It doesn't matter if it's too little, it will dissipate if he comes into contact with sunlight more. Upon hearing what he said, Yu Xiaoyao felt relieved, crossed her calves and legs again, closed her eyes, and began to meditate. The next day, when Mr. Yang came in early in the morning, he saw the little girl sitting cross-legged on the bed with her eyes closed. Her small face was full of serious expressions, and her long eyelashes cast a faint shadow on her face. Such a cute appearance made people couldn't help but like it. The plump little tender palms were facing upwards, as if making some incomprehensible gesture. What is this girl doing? The old man couldn't help but think that after the little daughter fell into the water, she became somewhat strange for a period of time, and even helped people look at her. He certainly doesn't believe these things, he just feels sorry for that girl who is so poor that she even wants to deceive and deceive. He shouldn't be angry, he should have contacted her earlier. Maybe she won't go missing now. In the next few days, the little girl would occasionally make such movements, and she would do them for most of the time. She didn't answer when asked what she was doing. Finally, he slowly guided and mysteriously said that he was practicing and absorbing spiritual energy. The Yu family taught her all sorts of things. And Niu Niu is a bit afraid of people, except for them, she almost hides at the sight of people. Thinking of what she had experienced, Mr. Yang felt even more heartbroken. He must have been frightened by the group of people from the Yu family. He was really worried, so he called the expert he had previously contacted. Miss, there may have been fewer people talking before, so it's best to immerse yourself in your own world and find some peers to talk to her more. When she grows up, she should improve. After seeing off the expert surnamed Chen, the old man said to Yang Yuanfan, it's just summer vacation, and your two children should have nothing to do. Let them come and accompany Niu Niu. Yang Yuanfan nodded and said, okay, I'll have someone bring them over now. Yu Xiaoyao has been meditating, and Yinchuan has also learned about the situation of the Yang family to some extent. This elder brother of the Yang family seems to be working in real estate. Although he is young, his industry is almost everywhere in the sea. Just Yinchuan stared at him in confusion. Last time, although the gray gas on his body was not much, it would dissipate due to exposure to the sun. However, after a few days, it actually increased slightly. Strange, it seems that this matter is not quite simple. Chapter 5. True Fragrance Warning. You are listening at novel full.audio. The next morning, a car stopped at the entrance of Yang's old house. The two children who got off the car, one is an 11 or 12-year-old boy, wearing a casual T-shirt, looking sunny and handsome. He is the son of Yang Yuanfan, named Yang Anren. And another little girl, named Yang Anning, looks around 5 years old, wearing a pink princess dress and a butterfly hairpin of the same color on her head, just like a delicate little princess. Yang Anren looked unhappy, with a tense face, but Yang Anning's small face was covered in a smile. Today, it was Dad who called them over, and Dad is also at Grandpa's house. Dad is usually very busy with work, and she rarely sees him. Finally, we can meet today. She must have her father hug her more. For this, she also asked her mother to dress her up specially. She is the most beautiful little princess today. Yang Anning took the hem of her skirt and circled around, saying to Yang Anren, "Brother, does Ning Ning look good?" The young boy said perfunctorily, "It looks good. Dad would definitely love to see Ning Ning, wouldn't he?" Yang Anren nodded perfunctorily. Upon hearing his brother's answer, Yang Anning felt relieved and followed out to welcome their butler. She walked forward, entered the villa, and finally arrived at Yu Xiaoyao's room. As soon as he entered the door, Yang Anning was stunned. Wow! This room is so beautiful, it's all pink that she likes, and there's also that big pink rabbit that she really likes. She wants it. Before she could finish sighing, she quickly saw her own father. The smile on his face suddenly collapsed. Dad, her dad is actually holding a strange girl. The clothes that the girl is wearing are even more beautiful than those on her body, and her room is also larger and more beautiful than hers. Yang Anning clenched her small hands tightly, puffed her cheeks, and walked over angrily, asking, "Dad, who is she?" Yang Yuanfan smiled and replied, "This is your aunt's child, your cousin, called Niu Niu." Looking at her father's smile, Yang Anning felt sour in her heart. Dad is always too busy to go home, and she hasn't been much hugged by him. Dad is so unreasonable. She lifted her little head to look at Yu Xiaoyao, who was indeed very cute and looked like a doll. But Dad can't be biased either. Ning Ning is also so cute, and Dad is clearly Ning Ning's dad. She was not very convinced in her heart and puffed her cheeks, saying, "Dad, you big rascal, would rather not have a younger sister." Yang Yuanfan didn't expect his daughter to have such a reaction, but he patiently said, "Ning Ning, you are a sister, you should get along well with her." Yang Anning saw her father still holding her little sister, and her face was even more aggrieved. Daddy is bad. Ning Ning hates Daddy. Mrs. Wang next to her saw it and quickly said, "Sir, let's give me Niu Niu first." In fact, the young lady hasn't fully awakened yet. Every morning, she sits cross-legged for half a day seriously and tells her that she is practicing. After Mr. Ku arrived, he picked her up casually. Yang Yuanfan agreed and handed Yu Xiaoyao over to Mrs. Wang. He walked up to his daughter and rubbed her little head, saying, "Ning Ning, be good, don't be so stubborn." He turned to Yang Anren again and said, "Anren, you and your sister should spend more time talking to your little cousin here." "Humph, don't say." Yang Anning curled her mouth and was about to speak when Yang Anren grabbed her and smiled, "Okay Dad, I will definitely spend time with my little cousin." Before coming, the young boy actually heard that his father came this time to accompany his aunt to give birth to a little fool. Although he doesn't like this silly little sister and doesn't want to play with her at all, he still needs to do enough acting in front of his father. He can't bear the consequences of angering his father. Yang Anning listened to him the most and was pulled by his brother. Although he was very unhappy, he did not make a sound again. He sat down on the sofa beside him angrily, grabbed the dim sum on the tea table, regarded it as a father he hated, and took a bite out of it. Seeing his son obediently walking up to Yu Xiaoyao and trying to talk to her, Yang Yuanfan nodded in satisfaction. He glanced at the time and then told Mrs. Wang to leave first. Mrs. Wang saw young Anning's face covered in food and was afraid of disturbing young Anren's conversation with Niu Niu. She carefully placed Niu Niu on the sofa and then picked up a handkerchief to wipe young Anning's face. At this moment, young Anren approached Yu Xiaoyao and whispered, "Hello, silly sister, do you understand what I'm saying?" However, the little girl next to her still sat there dumbfounded, with her eyes closed and motionless. Let's say she's sleeping, it's not like it, but her eyes are always closed. Shouldn't he be just a little blind, besides being foolish? He no longer cares about her. Anyway, Dad has left, there's no need to pretend anymore. He took out his phone and chatted with his friends in the group. "Boss, are you still going today? I heard this ruins will be demolished in a few days. If we don't come, we won't be able to explore again. Go." "Of course, I'll go later." Still Brother Ran. Brother Ran is the boldest here. Young Anren curled her lips. A group of cowards, not only an old shopping mall, but also said that it was haunted. Where did ghosts come from in the world? Tonight, they will live stream with the latest drone their mother bought for them, showing them. Usually, his parents are very strict, and he never gives up when he finally finds something exciting to do. Suddenly, he inexplicably felt someone looking at him. He followed the direction of his gaze and found that it was actually the foolish sister. She used to keep her eyes closed, but now her gaze shifted noticeably upwards and landed on his phone. Those beautiful eyes are incredibly clear, and the originally delicate little face looks even more beautiful. Young Anren was stunned for a moment, until his sister next to him called him brother several times before he regained his senses. Looking at Yu Xiaoyao's gaze, he was a bit amused. Was this attracted by his phone? He lifted his phone and shook it, but saw that Yu Xiaoyao quickly withdrew her gaze and closed her eyes again. After this incident, young Anren lost his interest in continuing to play and accompanied his sister for a while. Young Anning drank a full glass of milk and soon clamored to go to the bathroom. Mrs. Wang turned her head to look at young Anren and said awkwardly, "Young Master Anren, please help me take a look at Miss Niu Niu first. I will be back soon." "Okay," young Anren smiled and nodded. But just as Mrs. Wang left with young Anning, he immediately got up. Unexpectedly, before he could take a few steps, he heard a soft and sticky voice coming out. "Brother, you better not leave for now." The speech speed is not fast, and it is a bit unfamiliar, but the voice is sweet and pleasant to listen to. Young Anren turned around in surprise and saw his younger sister, who had looked like a doll before. She looked straight at him, and her eyes were as clear as before, landing right on his face. He froze in place, as if being seen through, feeling uncomfortable all over. Chapter 6. The Best Sister. You are listening at novel full.audio. Turns out this silly little sister can talk, and after waiting for a long time without seeing her speak, I thought she wouldn't know. It's strange to be clingy, maybe there weren't any children playing with her before. Young Anren perfunctorily said, "I'm not leaving, I'm just going to the restroom. There will be danger." Yu Xiaoyao looked at young Anren seriously and said these words. She had just completed a short cycle of cultivation and closed her eyes again. She had just discussed with her brother Yinchuan and confirmed that young Anren's current situation was indeed very dangerous. Uncle's body was only wrapped in some gray air, while young Anren felt like he was wrapped in gray air. The gray aura on my uncle's body is likely to have come from him, no wonder it hasn't decreased, but has actually increased a bit. Upon hearing this, young Anren chuckled and completely ignored it. In order to keep him, this silly sister also learned to scare people. But fools are fools, lying is not technical, there is no danger, he has a driver to pick him up and take him in and out. Moreover, since he was 3 years old, he has been learning boxing from a professional coach, so there will be no trouble or danger that comes with him. Thinking that my father had mentioned by chance before that my aunt could see things that everyone couldn't see when she was young, he couldn't help but laugh and say, "What? Are you saying that my printing hall has turned black? Have you seen any bloodshed on me? What is a disaster of blood and light?" Yu Xiaoyao didn't quite understand, but she replied seriously, "It's not a disaster of blood and light. That's okay, don't make a sound, I'll leave." After speaking, young Anren ignored Yu Xiaoyao and walked away quickly. He was afraid that if it was any later, he wouldn't be able to escape. Yu Xiaoyao looked at his rapidly disappearing figure and sighed in her heart. "Brother Yinchuan, I didn't stop him. Don't worry about him, let him suffer a bit." Yinchuan looked at the grey aura. Although it could be dangerous, it didn't endanger his life yet. People who don't listen to advice should suffer a bit. Yu Xiaoyao nodded and saw no one around, so she decided to cross her legs and practice again. When Mrs. Wang returned with young Anning and found that the young master was missing, she was startled. It's okay, Niu Niu is still here." Young Anning stopped working and looked around. "Where's brother? How could my brother sneak away on his own? She doesn't want to stay here either." Wang Sashan smiled and comforted, "Your brother may have gone to the restroom too." "Oh, okay." Young Anning sat back on the sofa and looked at the snacks on the table. "I just ate a lot, and now I have lost my appetite." She tilted her head to look at her sister next to her. This sister is so quiet, she doesn't make any noise or fuss at all. She spoke and cried so loudly just now that my sister wasn't angry, which made her feel a bit embarrassed. Young Anning blushed a little and looked curiously at Yu Xiaoyao. Why hasn't my sister been speaking? Is it because she didn't speak to her, so she didn't speak either? So she climbed up to her sister's side, and upon seeing her, she found that she was so beautiful. Wearing this small white dress on her, she really looked good. Everyone says she is the little princess, but she thinks her sister is even more beautiful, like a fairy. Young Anning looked at the strawberry hairpin on top of Yu Xiaoyao's head and touched her pink butterfly hairpin. In fact, she thinks her sister's hair clip is not very suitable for her. This fairy-like outfit is more suitable for her butterfly hair clip. How about changing it with her sister? She might look very nice wearing it. Thinking so, she reached out to pull. Mrs. Wang next to her saw it and quickly wanted to speak up to stop it. Coincidentally, Yang Yuanfan returned and saw his daughter actually going to catch Niu Niu's hairpin. He immediately spoke up and stopped. "Ning Ning, stop it." Young Anning couldn't help but be startled by her father. She was about to say that she wanted to change her hairpin with her sister when her father frowned and continued to speak. "How can you take your sister's things? Isn't your hair clip full of drawers? You're not doing this right. If you like it, you can tell Dad that he will buy it for you. Why do you want to grab your sister's?" Upon hearing his father speak so fiercely, Ong Anning's eyes turned red as he remembered the way he had just hugged his sister. Does Dad not like her anymore? Dad used to say he was busy with work and didn't have time to hug her. Now that he has a younger sister, he definitely won't hug her anymore. The more she thought about it, the more sad she became, and she burst into tears. Dad is a big bad guy. Ning Ning doesn't like Dad anymore. Dad is bad. She ran out while crying. Mrs. Wang quickly chased after her. Yang Yuanfan sighed with a headache, not knowing how his daughter could be so stubborn. He didn't buy her too many gift boxes, and every time he came home, he always packed big and small bags, picking the best things. Did he spoil you? Just as he was thinking about it, he heard a childish voice coming over. Uncle, it's not. Yang Yuanfan was momentarily stunned and quickly turned around, just in time to see Yu Xiaoyao blink. Niu Niu, are you awake? He greeted with a smile. Yu Xiaoyao is very anxious. Uncle should go quickly to comfort her sister and apologize to her. She had just wanted to help her sister explain, but finally managed to endure until she finished practicing for a small week before quickly speaking up. Sister. She's not trying to snatch my hair clip. She's trying to exchange it with me. Although young Anning didn't say anything at that time, Yu Xiaoyao knew her sister's intentions and she really wanted to exchange hairpins with her. Niu Niu is still a bit slow in speaking long sentences, but Yang Yuanfan patiently listened and couldn't help but freeze. Is that so? Uncle, go quickly. Tell your sister I'm sorry. Facing Yu Xiaoyao's serious little face, Yang Yuanfan paused, and the little girl seemed angry. He nodded solemnly and said, Okay, don't be angry, Niu Niu. Uncle will go apologize to sister immediately. Yu Xiaoyao nodded her head hard. Yang Yuanfan called someone to come and take care of Yu Xiaoyao, and then ran out. Before taking a few steps, he saw Mrs. Wang waving at him. As he walked over, he saw young Anning crouching under a tree with her small body curled up. The little girl was sobbing sadly, her little body trembling. Seeing this, Yang Yuanfan's heart couldn't help but tug. Speaking of which, he has been spending very little time with his daughter recently. Although children always bring gifts, they don't just give gifts blindly. He walked slowly over and called out softly, Ning Ning. Upon hearing his father's voice, young Anning's small body trembled suddenly and she cried even more sadly. Ning Ning, it's Dad's fault this time. My younger sister has already told Dad that you want to change hairpins with her, right? Young Anning turned around and looked at her father with tearful eyes. She suddenly nodded and sobbed, saying, I'm not trying to snatch my sister's hairpin. Before she could finish speaking, she cried even more sadly, out of breath, unable to speak for a moment. Yang Yuanfan suddenly felt even more heartbroken and quickly picked her up, wiping away her tears. All right, stop crying. Dad's not right, Dad apologizes to you. Dad is bad, he doesn't even go home, he doesn't even hug me, but Dad is so kind to his sister, doesn't he like Ning Ning anymore? Yang Yuanfan smiled helplessly and scraped her small nose, saying, in the future, Dad will also hug Ning Ning more. So, is Ning Ning still my dad's little princess? Of course, Ning Ning will always be my father's little princess. The little girl finally burst into tears and smiled upon hearing these words. Although her father misunderstood her just now, she is so happy now that she knows that her father still likes her, and he promised her to hug her more and spend more time with her. By the way, it's thanks to Niu Niu's younger sister, who helped her speak. Dad, let's go back quickly. I want to thank Sister Niu Niu, said young Anning, with a red and eager expression on her face. Chapter 7. Mao Mao Lai Lai. You are listening at novel full.audio. Returning to Yu Xiaoyao's room, young Anning looked at her sister who was still sitting obediently on the sofa, stepped away from her calves, and ran over with a clattering sound. She climbed onto the sofa, sat next to her sister again, and said seriously, Sister Niu, thank you. Seeing her sister smiling, Yu Xiaoyao was also very happy and said, You're welcome. Young Anning likes this sister more and more. My younger sister is really nice. Not only doesn't cry like her, but she is also very kind. It's still very annoying, she made her and her father reconcile in an instant. She decided that from now on, her favorite would be her younger sister. Young Anning patted her small chest and said, If you have any problems in the future, just tell your sister and she will protect you. She has always been the youngest in the family, and now she has finally become a sister. She raised her small head and looked proud, so her sister must protect her sister, just like her brother protects her. This butterfly hair clip is for you. After obtaining consent, they exchanged their hair clips and put them on their hair. My younger sister is really a brewer. Sister is also very good at brewing. Wow. My sister praised her. My younger sister is more skilled in brewing. Sister, she's even more brewed. The two little dolls struggled for a while without nutrition, but just as everyone thought they were going to argue, they suddenly looked at each other with a sweet smile and hugged each other. Looking at this warm scene, Yang Yuanfan was also very pleased. He was too careless, thanks to Niu Niu this time. The two children quickly became good friends, and young Anning was temporarily arranged to stay here, and she herself was also very happy. That night, the two dolls hugged each other and fell asleep. Yu Xiaoyao also didn't forget about her cultivation. Fortunately, a few days ago, her body couldn't move at all, so she has now developed a unique secret skill. Practicing while sleeping. Even Yinchuan admires her very much. Her talent lies in the cultivation plane, and she is definitely the result of various sects competing fiercely. The next morning, young Anning had a dance class. She reluctantly bid farewell to Yu Xiaoyao and promised to play together in the afternoon. In order to abide by the agreement, as soon as she left, Yu Xiaoyao started practicing hard. Before practicing, she glanced at the progress bar again and saw that she had moved forward for a while before dancing and dancing. She glanced at the transparent bottle and was surprised to find that there was an extra small stone inside. It's small, just like a peanut, you can't even notice it if you don't look closely. Brother Yinchuan, there are stones. Upon hearing these words, Yinchuan still didn't believe it. This hasn't started yet, where does the power of faith come from? The result is really there. He thought in surprise and guessed, maybe it's Yang Anning's. Yesterday, Yu Xiaoyao helped her resolve the misunderstanding with her father and brought him closer to her, which is normal for her to develop a sense of admiration. Sister Anning is a good person. Yu Xiaoyao happily looked at the small stone inside and reached out her little hand to touch it. Despite being separated by a transparent bottle, she smoothly touched it, and then the small stone emitted a faint light. The progress bar next to it surprisingly crawled a long way. Wow, what's the situation? Yu Xiaoyao's little face showed a confused and surprised expression. The power of faith can assist in cultivation, even better than the effect of spiritual energy, replied Yinchuan. Yu Xiaoyao listened and her little brain twitched around. So, as long as she helps people more, she can collect more power of faith and quickly bring back Mao Mao. It's not that easy, said Yinchuan. How can one gain the power of faith by helping others? Unfortunately, the little girl didn't listen. On this day, except after completing her cultivation, she tried her best to help everyone. At once, I helped my grandfather beat his back and served tea to my aunts and uncles. He even ran to the garden to help pull out the grass, which surprised everyone and made them repeatedly say they didn't need it. After a busy day, the power of faith did not increase, but the entire Yang family's old house was filled with laughter and joy. This is also quite good. Yu Xiaoyao lay on the sofa, just helping her grandfather knock on his back for a while, so tired that she couldn't move. At this moment, a refreshing voice came from outside the house. Niu Niu, look at what uncle has bought for you. It's uncle. Yu Xiaoyao has noticed that both the first and second uncles are quite busy, but this little uncle is a little busier than them. Because he often buys a lot of things for her. Since she arrived at her grandfather's house, her uncle has sent her many dolls, beautiful clothes, delicious food, and various things. It's really that my uncle gave too much. Niu Niu started counting 1, 2, and 3 times, but later on she couldn't even count them. Also, my uncle moved out the nearby room and stuffed it with slides, seesaws, swings. Many toys, almost turned into a large amusement park. He is really good. Yang Yuanya walked over with a newly bought small skirt and suddenly caught a glimpse of a dark figure in front of the window. In the blink of an eye, there was actually an extra cat in the room. It was indeed a cat, now lightly landing on the carpet, stretching its paws and waist. Yang Yuanya looked at the sudden appearance of the orange cat in surprise, almost not startled. How did this cat get in? Is it a stray cat? It's so dirty, hurry up and drive it out. Uncle, hurry up. Yu Xiaoyao quickly spoke up, and the orange cat deftly jumped up to her side and lay down. This is Mao Mao, the cat my mother raised. She looked at the orange cat that suddenly appeared in surprise and introduced it to her little uncle. Is it raised by my younger sister? Yang Yuanye was even more surprised. This place is very far from the Yu family. How did the cat find this place? Yu Xiaoyao nodded and said, the fur is very greasy and harmful. Mao Mao is really annoying. He has been with her all the time and even talks to her at night. Mao Mao is a good cat. She touched Mao Mao's back and said, Mao Mao, where have you been? Long time no see. As she spoke seriously, Yang Yuanye couldn't help but laugh and said, then stay. After speaking, he turned around and instructed Mrs. Wang to buy a litter box, cat food, and so on. By the way, we also need to take the pet hospital for a check.Up and wash it thoroughly. As a result, the orange cat came and went without a trace, and when he turned around, he found that it had disappeared. Where's the cat? Yu Xiaoyao said, Mao Mao is very busy, he may come back in a while. Surprisingly, there is such a magical cat. Undoubtedly raised by my younger sister, she is truly unique. He could only instruct Mrs. Wang that if that orange cat reappears, he must take it for examination and bathing, and not dirty the little girl. In the afternoon, along with Yang Anning, there was also her brother Yang Anren. After Yang Anren arrived, he deliberately ran up to Yu Xiaoyao and shook his head, whispering, didn't you say I would be in danger? Look, I have nothing to do, don't keep nagging all day. This silly little sister said that kind of thing for no reason, which made him nervous when he went on an adventure today. Yu Xiaoyao was originally learning new skills from Yinchuan, but when she heard this voice, she looked up at him. The gray aura on the little brother's body has increased again, and now it feels like he is completely enveloped in the gray aura. Yinchuan guessed, he mostly came into contact with something. That thing left a mark on him and would absorb this gray air, slowly accumulating to become what it looks like. Yu Xiaoyao asked anxiously, Brother Yinchuan, is there really no danger, little brother? It looks so scary. Of course there will be, but it won't currently endanger life's safety. Yu Xiaoyao wanted to say something more, but Yinchuan said, don't worry, since he doesn't listen to advice, let him suffer a little setback. The meaning of waiting for him to come knocking on his own will be different, and it will be easier to collect the power of faith. Yu Xiaoyao originally wanted to remind the little brother, but he didn't want to talk to her at all. After saying that, he turned his head and walked away, playing with his phone on the side. Okay, then listen to Brother Yinchuan's words. Chapter 8. They are the fools, right? You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. Yu Xiaoyao also has her own troubles now. Brother Yinchuan, when will my soul fully merge? She just glanced at the progress bar, which was almost full, but it was just a little short. No matter how hard she tried to cultivate, there was no change. This little bit happens to be the most difficult. Because she had been separated for many years, her soul and soul developed some repulsive force, which prevented her from fully merging. Merely practicing meditation may not solve the problem. Brother Yinchuan, what should we do? Yu Xiaoyao tilted her head in distress. We may need some more power of faith to assist. Coincidentally, there are ready-made ones around. Yinchuan has actually been optimistic for a long time, waiting for the other party to come knocking. Yu Xiaoyao nodded. If you want to solve Enron's troubles, you may need a lot of spiritual energy. Before Enron seeks help from her, she should accumulate more spiritual energy. Also, there is one thing she really wants to trouble her grandfather. After hesitating for a long time, she was still having breakfast when she made a small request in her heart. Why Dong, can Aunt Lu take care of Niu Niu? Who is Aunt Lu? The old man asked. Yu Xiaoyao hurriedly said, Aunt Lu is my aunt who takes care of me. She was invited by her parents. Although this aunt is also very good now, she is more familiar with Aunt Lu. And Aunt Lu is so kind to her. She lives in such a beautiful place now and also wants Aunt Lu to take a look. Why Dong, can you call her over and give her a raise, a much higher salary? She heard that after her parents were gone, it was Aunt Lu who took the initiative to stay and take care of her. It seems that her grandfather hasn't even given her a salary, it's still the same as what her parents gave her before. Maybe it's already expired. Aunt Lu also has older sisters in her family, and she hopes they can also have a better life. Okay, Grandpa promised you. Mr. Yang felt even more sorry for the child. Such a kind child always wants to repay others. Yang Yuanfan listened and said, Dad, I happen to have something to attend to. Let me handle this on the way. Yang Yuanjing smiled lightly and propped up his chin, giving an idea. By the way, bring Niu Niu with you. What are you doing with taking Niu Niu to that place? Yang Yuanfan disagrees. Isn't that reminding Niu Niu of being called a fool and a lonely star in the sky? Yang Yuanjing smiled again and said, Of course I brought it up for them to see. Don't they say Niu Niu is a little fool? Everyone suddenly understood that the Yu family had always thought that Niu Niu was a little fool and even said that she would bring them bad luck. But on the contrary, Niu Niu is not only not foolish, but also their little lucky star. Since Niu Niu arrived, everything has been going smoothly and they are very happy every day. Even the old man's body has become much stronger. Such a lovely child, if you say no, then no, they will regret it. However, the idea of taking the child out to show off was only briefly dismissed in Yang Yuanfan's mind. It's better not to go, Niu Niu. What if they see the current Niu Niu and want to snatch her back? That's right. Yang Yuanjing was awakened with a word. He really wants to show off and let the whole world know about Niu Niu's cuteness, so it seems better to hide it. Listening to his father and uncle's serious conversation, Yang Anren, who was having breakfast next to him, rolled his eyes. Why are these adults becoming increasingly childish? Yang Anning nodded incessantly, thinking that her younger sister was so good that if someone snatched her back, she would definitely cry. What kind of person from the Yu family would be willing to abandon such a good sister? They are idiots, right? Yu family. Upon receiving the news, they heard that the Yang family was going to send someone over. They couldn't help but speculate that the Yang family might be planning to send the fool back. Oh my, that fool can never come back. That's right, that's the heavenly demon Lone Star. I don't want to die. If I bring her back, I'll throw her into the welfare home. Although I really don't want to see that little fool, when the Yang family comes, I definitely want to give face. If I accidentally offend them, the cost will be quite high. Especially Yu Mancheng, who recently delayed the fortune of the Yang family and completed a big order, was worried about not having the opportunity to thank them in person. The other few also had their own thoughts, hoping to get to know the Yang family. They despised the little fools, but their bodies were particularly honest, and they rushed to the door to greet them. After waiting for a while, I saw a luxury car slowly approaching. After the car stopped, everyone calmly looked left and right, but didn't see the fool. It was only then that they relaxed and felt relieved. The person who came down was Yang Yuanfan. Seeing him, the eyes of the Yu family lit up. Hello, Mr. Yang. How do you have time to come over? Yu Mancheng quickly greeted with a smile. Yang Yuanfan didn't want to stay here too long and said directly to the mountain, Do you have a nanny named Lu here who used to take care of Niu Niu? Of course, Yu Mancheng had an impression and nodded, saying, You said the nanny has already been dismissed. Why was he dismissed? Yang Yuanfan frowned. Seeing his expression, the Yang family immediately guessed that it must be that little fool who was not easy to take care of and could not hire a suitable person. Yu Mancheng, who was also sharp-eyed, quickly said, Mr. Yang, I can give you the address of the nanny. Don't stand at the door, go in and sit down. You don't need to sit down. How about that? I haven't thanked you enough about the last plot of land. Yes, Mr. Yang, come in and have a seat. The people behind also spoke one after another. Yang Yuanfan is a busy person, and he can't see him at all. It's not easy to see him, and they don't want to miss this opportunity to flatter him. Yang Yuanfan asked, "Is that land okay for you to use?" Yu Manxing nodded repeatedly and said, "Okay, okay. That's a prime location, the price is incalculable, but Yang Yuanfan actually gave it to him at a cheap price. During this period, he has made a lot of money, and soon after, it is not an exaggeration to say that he can reach the pinnacle of his life." Yang Yuanfan continued, "I gave you that piece of land before for the sake of my little sister. It's not necessary now. I'll have someone come and take it back tomorrow." This made Yu Manxing dumbfounded. He sneered, "Mr. Yang, this joke can't be made. Our contracts haven't even expired yet, and we need to pay a penalty for breach of contract. It's just a small penalty for breach of contract. I'll give it to you and invite a few more masters to take a look. See if your eyes are blinded by something foolish like this." Yang Yuanfan disdainfully dropped these words, didn't linger any longer, and simply landed in the car and left. Yu Manxing didn't understand the meaning of his last sentence, but it didn't stop him from wanting to go back a few minutes ago and hit himself hard. "Why are you talking so cheap about mentioning the land?" He didn't give up on trying to remedy it and chased behind the car shouting, "Mr. Yang, I haven't given you the nanny's address yet." However, the car was very fast and disappeared in the blink of an eye, leaving only a trail of exhaust for him. In the car, Yang Yuanfan made a phone call and said, "Help find someone. The sea market is so big, just looking for someone, there's no need to rely on the news from the Yu family." Not long after, he received a string of addresses on his phone. Yang Yuanfan is preparing to personally invite this nanny. Thanks to her, Niu Niu can still be healthy in that environment. And Niu Niu likes her so much that she has to be invited home anyway. Chapter 9. I really have some skills on me. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. The process of finding people went smoothly. After the meeting, Aunt Lu heard that it was Miss Niu Niu's uncle, and she was not surprised at all. There are indeed not many people who can take good care of Niu Niu's situation. Her uncle came to find her with a heart, at least much better than the Yu family. "Okay, I'll go with you." She has been worried about Niu Niu these past few days, wanting to go see her, but there's no way out. Now the other party has come over, just in line with her intentions. Sitting in the car, Aunt Lu still felt a little uneasy. I don't know how Niu Niu has been these days, whether she has been taken care of or not. She should have new clothes to wear. There were many speculations in her heart, but she didn't expect them at all. As soon as she entered the door, she heard Niu Niu sweetly calling her, "Aunt Lu." Aunt Lu couldn't help but freeze in place, staring blankly at the little girl in front of her, dressed beautifully and with a rosy face. She used to be cute enough, but now her little face has grown a circle of flesh, and she looks even more beautiful with a white, tender, and watery appearance. It seems that there is no longer the dull appearance I had on the Yu family's side before. "Niu Niu, is this cured?" Yu Xiaoyao was carried by Mrs. Wang and came to Aunt Lu. She reached out her tender hand and tried to say, "Aunt Lu, hold on." Upon hearing these words, Aunt Lu suddenly regained her senses and her eyes turned red. She suddenly nodded and took her. "Niu Niu, Aunt Lu misses you so much. Niu Niu also wants to. Aunt Lu." Afterwards, Yang Yuanfan discussed with her to continue taking care of Niu Niu. Aunt Lu naturally agreed. Yu Xiaoyao next to her also helped by saying, "Uncle, I want to give Aunt Lu a raise. There are many salaries." Her little face was full of seriousness. "When Niu Niu grows up, and she can make money, she will repay you." Yang Yuanfan was immediately amused and said, "Okay, get a raise." Aunt Lu had a dizzy day, feeling as if she had been hit by a huge pie. Not only did I see Miss Niu, but I was also rehired and even received a lot of salary increases. There are really many, many things that she dare not even think about. When she hugged Yu Xiaoyao to the room, she was even more surprised. Oh my goodness, this big and beautiful room shows that the uncles of the Yang family really like Niu Niu. She turned around and wanted to talk to Yu Xiaoyao, but saw her sitting on the sofa, with her legs crossed and her eyes closed, as if she was meditating. She was stunned for a moment before walking over and closing the door. I haven't been with my wife for a year or two, and she has some faith in the power of mysticism. Anyway, no matter what the reason is, as long as Miss Niu is okay, that's a good thing. The next morning, the young boy Yang Anren rushed to the Yang family's old house. Although his face was tense, upon closer inspection, one could see that he was covered in panic, clearly pretending to be calm. Entering the restaurant, I found my grandfather having breakfast and he quickly said hello. Grandpa, good morning. Where's my sister? Mr. Yang replied, Ning Ning is still sleeping. Yang Anren hurriedly asked, so, what about Niu Niu's sister? Upon hearing this, Mr. Yang looked up at him with suspicion. He has heard that this kid has been wandering around these past few days, obviously not wanting to play with Niu Niu. He asked so early today. Niu Niu is sleeping with Ning Ning. Sleeping together. Young Anren was taken aback for a moment. How long has it been since her own sister started playing with her silly sister? He suddenly had a feeling that his sister had been taken away. Mr. Yang couldn't help but laugh as he watched the little boy's face change in a short period of time. It's not easy for our own children, they learn to beat around the bush at a young age. Sit down and have breakfast first, he said. Young Anren hesitated to speak, but in the end, she obediently sat down. He just ate breakfast and occasionally glanced outside, looking a bit anxious. After finishing the meal and waiting in the living room for a while, I finally saw two girls dressed beautifully brought in by the nanny. Weidong. When Yu Xiaoyao saw Mr. Yang, she immediately raised her small hand and waved to greet her. Ah! The old man smiled happily, come over and have dinner quickly. Recently, the little girl has become more and more lively, no longer looking timid at first. I heard her sweetly call him this morning, and he naturally feels good. Even the scenery outside has improved a lot. Yu Xiaoyao skillfully sat on the small chair, which had a memory function. When she sat down, she rose to the appropriate height on her own. Previously, Aunt Lu fed Yu Xiaoyao food, but today she wants to try it on her own. Aunt Lu hesitated for a moment, but when she met Yu Xiaoyao's eyes, she heard her whispering, Aunt Lu, please, please. She fell instantly. Who can refuse Miss Niu's request? I wish I could agree to all her demands. The old man also encouraged, let Niu Niu give it a try. With the support of her grandfather, Yu Xiaoyao immediately picked up the small fork next to her and tried to insert the small tomatoes into the plate. But she tried for a while, and the little tomato seemed to be against her, running all at once to the left and then to the right. So, she and Little Tomato had a long battle of wits and courage. This thrilling scene made everyone present hold their breath. Niu Niu's sister, come on. Young Anning picked up a small pink fist to cheer her up. After thinking for a moment, Yu Xiaoyao secretly gathered a spiritual energy, controlled the Little Tomato, and then forcefully forked the fork, successfully capturing the Little Tomato. Yinchuan was a bit surprised that she had learned spiritual energy control without a teacher, just for that Little Tomato. Wow, Niu Niu's younger sister is amazing. Young Anning immediately applauded. Well, Niu Niu is pretty good, Mr. Yang also praised. Upon hearing everyone praising him, young Anren felt a bit speechless. Is this something worth praising? It's necessary to exaggerate if you just fork a small tomato. Those who don't know still think that Niu Niu has overcome some world problem. His heart was so roast, but he also quickly said. Great. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw young Anning blinking her big eyes and nodding suddenly. Right, Niu Niu's sister is amazing, super amazing. Young Anren. He is really speechless. What is the situation with this little girl? Surprisingly, he was so thoroughly subdued. Yu Xiaoyao felt a bit embarrassed when they praised her, her face blushing, and she finally reached out her chubby little hand to cover her eyes. She didn't hide like before and encouraged herself. Niu Niu is the bravest, come on, Niu Niu. Strive to become more greasy and harmful. Baba Mao Mao Ma will definitely be happy when she comes back. When the two female dolls finished breakfast and Mr. Yang went to work on his own affairs, young Anren finally found the opportunity. He used the excuse of getting something to support Aunt Lu and walked up to Yu Xiaoyao, anxiously whispering, Sister Niu, what did you mean by what you said to me that day? Did you see something? It's strange that he's been feeling anxious lately when he's outside, but as long as he stays by Niu Niu's sister's side, he feels particularly at ease. This little sister may actually have some skills on her. Yu Xiaoyao's meeting is still in preparation, and a small weekend has not ended, so she did not respond to him. After waiting for a while, young Anren became a bit anxious. Sister Niu Niu, if you know anything, can you tell me? I apologize for my bad attitude before. He wanted to say something more when he heard Yu Xiaoyao's crisp voice coming over. I forgive my brother. Is it that simple to forgive? You should know that in the past, he made Ning Ning angry. That little girl was rolling around, and he was both coaxing and buying gifts before he could forgive her. He couldn't help but feel that this silly sister had become quite adorable. I suddenly understood why my dad and they liked her so much. Who doesn't like such a well-behaved sister? He looked into Yu Xiaoyao's eyes and inexplicably developed a sense of trust, revealing all of his troubles. It's like this, I've been in a bad luck since yesterday afternoon. How to crack Chapter 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yesterday, young Anren returned from exploring the ruins and lost his phone before boarding the car. It was finally retrieved and it was broken. Not only that, on the way home, his car collided with someone again. Fortunately the other person was not seriously injured. Afterwards, he stumbled inexplicably on the stairs when he returned home, and his knee was bruised. This is not over yet. I choked on drinking water and almost got hit by a branch while walking. In short, I found him with all the bad luck and felt particularly anxious. Amazingly, these situations have improved significantly after entering my grandfather's house. Upon hearing him say this, Yinchuan pondered for a moment and said, this person is completely enveloped in gray air. Surprisingly, he only encountered these small things. His luck is quite good. Yu Xiaoyao couldn't help but ask, what is qi luck? It's just a person's luck. Some people have better luck, while others have worse luck. Most people's luck is fixed, but doing something can also change it, such as doing more good deeds and accumulating some merit. Yu Xiaoyao nodded in confusion and then looked at the little brother. She seemed to have seen something, and a hint of doubt flashed in her eyes. She blinked and looked carefully. Brother, have you encountered? Recently. Her little face furrowed up, trying to describe it. I've encountered a little lion. Yinchuan paused, and the little girl must have seen something by saying so. But no matter how he looks, he can only see a cloud of gray air. Upon hearing this question, young Anren was also taken aback and tried to recall, little lion. He hasn't been to the zoo these days. Where did the lion come from? Thinking about it, he suddenly, By the way, I have indeed encountered it. Half a month ago, near a ruins where he went, there was a stone lion. At that time, he even kicked it with a cheap foot. Is that why? After hearing this, Yinchuan judged, it's likely that's the reason. The original sentence conveyed by Yu Xiaoyao. Young Anren was both anxious and afraid, and quickly asked, how do we crack it? This young boy who loves acting has completely lost his composure at this moment. He doesn't want to be so unlucky all the time. If he accidentally gets a bento, it would be really unfortunate. Yu Xiaoyao raised her small hand and patted her chest. Don't worry, it's wrapped around me. But I have a small request. You say, young Anren nodded. After I finish helping, brother, you have to worship me. Young Anren. What? Facing his bewildered face, Yu Xiaoyao added seriously and awkwardly, yes, you must be very, very admiring me. In this way, she can regain the power of faith. She is really a clever little ghost. Young Anren didn't know how this sister had such a strange habit, so she nodded and said, okay. If she can help solve it, not to mention admiring her, he can just call out, sister. After he finished speaking, he asked, how can I cooperate? It's best to go and see the scene, Yinchuan told Yu Xiaoyao. Upon hearing that she was going out, Yu Xiaoyao hesitated and poked with her two little hands. She is much braver now. Apart from her grandfather and others, she is not afraid of her uncles and aunts at home and will take the initiative to greet them. But there must be many, many people outside thinking that Baba Mama was still waiting for her help. Yu Xiaoyao clenched her fists to cheer herself up. It's okay, Niu Niu, you're the best. After making up her mind, she slid down from the sofa and said, brother, take me to take a look. Upon hearing that she was going to the scene, young Anren became worried. Do you have to go to the scene? You can't just be here, for example. Help me solve things like exorcism. Young Anren asked eagerly. He occasionally browsed short videos on metaphysics and gained some understanding of the master's processes. Looking at her soft and cute little sister, young Anren couldn't help but feel uneasy as she thought about her recent experiences. He admitted that this sister may really have skills, but those places are too dangerous. In order to seek excitement, he chose some remote and desolate places. If my younger sister falls, the consequences would be unimaginable. Besides, he is not sure of successfully taking his sister out. How to do it? Yu Xiaoyao blinked. She had heard the word not long ago and couldn't help but think of the previous master who was holding a round object and chattering incessantly. She quickly shook her little head. No, it looks strange. It's not impossible to solve it here, if he can bring that stone lion over, said Yinchuan. This. After listening to the narration, young Anren felt a headache. To be honest, he really didn't dare to go again when he thought it might be that stone lion that made him so unlucky. There's no talisman or anything else, please keep me safe. Those masters would give talismans or something, and Niu Niu's sister should also know it, right? Yinchuan mentioned talismans to Yu Xiaoyao before, and she remembers a little bit. She will start learning them when her soul is completely fused. He should be asking for peace symbols and seal symbols, just right. Today, I'll teach you some basic things, said Yinchuan. It is difficult to draw at once, and there are certain requirements for controlling spiritual energy, but he can assist her first. And today at the dinner table, she has already shown her hand and can start learning to control spiritual energy. Upon hearing that she wanted to learn new skills, Yu Xiaoyao quickly nodded. Niu Niu will work hard. She gave herself a boost and then told young Anren what props she needed. Yellow paper, cinnabar, brushes. And so on. Young Anren finished listening and quickly ran out. It's not difficult to buy yellow paper and a brush, while cinnabar can only be bought after visiting several stores. After packing his things and entering the door, he couldn't help but pause when he saw Aunt Lu coming back. He quickly walked over to Yu Xiaoyao and lowered his voice. Sister Niu Niu, is she okay? Do you want to stop supporting her? Aunt Lu is fine. Upon hearing her say this, young Anren didn't object and handed over the things to her. Frequently pushing people aside, the other party will definitely become suspicious. Take a look, right? Is it still missing or not? Yu Xiaoyao started checking things seriously, but in fact, every time she picked up something, she asked Yinchuan, "Is this right? What about this?" Yinchuan scanned it once. "The things are quite good, whether it's yellow paper or cinnabar, their appearance is still good, and they should be able to draw good talismans." With the assistance of Aunt Lu, the yellow paper was smoothly cut into appropriate sizes. Yu Xiaoyao tried to grab the brush, which was too big for her meaty hands. But as soon as she caught it, she felt a faint spiritual energy enveloping her hand, and in an instant, she firmly grasped the brush. A strange and complex pattern also appeared before my eyes. This is the Ping and Fu symbol. Try drawing it and draw whatever it can be. Gather the spiritual energy at the tip of the pen and inject it onto the yellow paper with cinnabar. Yu Xiaoyao took a serious look at the pattern and slowly moved her hand holding the brush on the yellow paper, drawing it in a dignified manner. Young Anren looked at her with great anticipation, truly a sister of Niu Niu, with such a master's demeanor. Just watching, the expression on his face gradually became indescribable. Sister Niu Niu may seem to be drawing very seriously, but every stroke is crooked and twisted, and not a single line can connect. Can this talisman really work?